Broads Media.
What is going on, everybody? Welcome on in to Sports Talk with Broads. This is the day after pod. Yes, we are recording this Thursday night, the day after the Phillies get eliminated by the stupid Mets. Soul-crushing. Just absolutely soul-crushing. And I want you to think about this. This perfectly describes the two clubs. You all saw the way Francisco Lindor trotted around the bases after hitting a grand slam in his home ballpark to advance to the NLCS. Did you see the way he acted? Dude's locked in, right? Now think about the way Alec Bohm acted in the dugout, crying. One team's soft. The other team plays with piss and vinegar. One team's lackadaisical all year long. The other team, well, they set themselves up in a very problematic situation. But you want to talk about tested? You want to talk about resilient? Rob somehow uses that word to describe this team, which is a joke. The Mets, they're resilient. It's the 8th inning. It's the 9th inning. Their OPS is 7 billion. While we can't muster up more than 4 hits in a game. They'll have 4 hits in 4 batters in the 9th, down 1. It's unbelievable. We no longer have the fun Xfinity Live dancing on my own Phillies era anymore. That era died. It's now you have to win us back. And ask the Sixers how difficult that is to do. So how do they? It's a great question. And it's not easy based off of where these contracts are. From a franchise standpoint, and I guess this means I'm looking at John Middleton, and of course, I'll walk through a lot of important names in this organization right now, but I want everyone to be uncomfortable. I want everyone to be uncomfortable. If you're too comfortable, this is what happens. Complacency. Dave Dombrowski has not done a good enough job, regardless of his track record. Do I think he's got more in him? Yes. But that Taiwan Walker contract sucks. And it plays a major role on why this team sort of punted every 5 days. And if you're punting every 5 days, you're acknowledging that it's okay to fail. Once a week. You're telling me that had nothing to do with the mentality? That's above Rob. This is a president of baseball operations message. It's okay to lose once a week. Don't worry about it. Terrible. The mindset is flawed. Let's look at Trey Turner's deal. Yo, Dave, he can't play his position, and he's nowhere close to consistent enough to justify the contract. Big swing and a miss, and you're stuck with him, I think. Him and Bohm would be the two that I would really try to move. Sorry, Bryce. I hate to break it to you. I know he's your guy. But it's time to make Bryce uncomfortable too. I'm not going to ridicule him as much as what I've heard today all throughout Sports Talk Radio due to him not putting the entire team on his back. He hit over 300. He walked a bunch of times. Him and Nick Castellanos offensively were the least of my worries. But I do despise the whole wearing T-shirts, sign JT, bring in my friends. Well, I don't want to deal with this back end of the JT Realmuto contract because the guy can't play anymore. He's extremely banged up, and we are now paying the price for it. That may not hurt you long term because there's only 1 year left on the deal. I don't know if that change is even enough. That's the thing. You're so limited in what you can do. What can really create that wow move in that clubhouse? And I have one that's on my mind, and I don't like it. because I don't think Rob deserves to be fired. But that's what almost makes it be so impactful. Now, let me get this off my chest to start. Will John Middleton do that? And Dave Dombrowski, no. No, I don't think Rob Thompson's getting fired. The players lost this series way more than Rob lost this series. With that, Rob wasn't good. Rob was not good. The 6th inning Hoffman thing was a disaster. It was absolutely pathetic. You're also in that predicament because your 5th starter can't even be on the playoff roster, and you have to go to work, albeit Ranger was a dog and my guy battled. But you put yourself in those positions where he has to throw 1,000 pitches to even get through, 4+ innings of work? And what happens when you have to yank your starter, who already is very questionable as it is, health-wise, so early in a game? You got to run through a bullpen. But when your bullpen isn't excelling and you're missing an arm that's a starter that could theoretically be in the bullpen to help you out when a starter has to get yanked early, you don't even have that option. See what I'm saying here? But still, Rob still could have been way quicker on the Jeff Hoffman move. And I don't know if you get a grand slam from Francisco Lindor if you're quicker. But anyway, he doesn't deserve to be fired. But I want something to happen that really shakes everything up. I want you to be on edge. And you may be thinking, is that right? Let's think of any work environment. When you walk through the doors at your job, and if you despise who you're working with, if the mojo is off, if it's bad to be in the same room as other people every day, are you as efficient as you should be? Well, don't get it to that point. There is a happy medium. When you're too comfortable, we see the repercussions of that. And I don't want it to be where you hate everybody. You're telling me there's no middle ground? The whole we love each other thing, one, I don't even know if it's true anymore. But two, it didn't work. I don't know how the guys feel about Bohm, but there's internal conflict with Bohm. It's sort of, I don't know if it's entitlement. It could be entitlement. Bohm gets an all-star nod, and now he thinks all of a sudden he's Willie Mays, or he's Hank Aaron, or he's just the greatest baseball player to ever exist. I'm not sure. Maybe entitlement is a big part of this. But it doesn't seem there's that close bond anymore. And there's some sour grapes in the mix. You got to remove them and then still have everybody on their toes at the same time. We tried the other way. I don't want to be here, but you had your opportunities and you clearly missed. The most obvious guy to get canned is Kevin Long. I don't ever want to see Kevin Long again. I don't want to see Kevin Long. I don't care that Trey Turner signed here because of Kevin Long. I don't care what Kyle Schwarber says about Kevin Long. I don't care what Bryce Harper says about Kevin Long. Kevin Long hasn't worked. The reason why this team sucks is because their approach at the plate. Who's in charge of their approach at the plate? Hitting coach. No. Part of it. Gotta go. I don't want to fire Rob, even though I don't think he maximized the team. Because he does do a lot of good things too. And once again, the players' lack of execution is a bigger ordeal. The lack of talent on the roster, a bigger ordeal. Hell, we may have learned that the guys in the bullpen are just soft as baby shit. Maybe Jeff Hoffman, cool story. I'm talking about winning in the playoffs, though. How he was found? Cute. Are you able to be found in the postseason with an ERA that satisfies me? Because as of now, the answer is no. The answer is you're throwing balls in the dirt and giving the Mets free passes. Estevez. Hear me out. Did it have to be a grand slam? It's a really rough spot to get thrown into. Did it have to be a nuke? What if the Mets scored 2 runs? What if you stopped the bleeding at 2 runs to keep it at 2-1? I'm not saying you got to get out of the inning unscathed. I'm not saying that. But the worst case scenario in the entire world happened. It couldn't be anything less than that. Maybe Matt Strom can't get it done that time of the year. And if that's the case, it doesn't really matter who Rob goes to. They were all failing. A 12 ERA I can't put on the manager. But you sure can get guys out quicker. And here's something that did piss me off with Rob. Go back to the 8th inning. Alec Bohm gets screwed on the non-fair ball call. That would be a foul ball. The foul ball call? Okay. Unless I'm missing something. Did anybody see Rob Thompson react? The season's on the line, right? Your playoff life is very short-lived if you can't pull this game out of your ass. You get hosed on a very brutal call by the first base ump. And you don't do anything? And you don't go out there and march into the face of the umpire and start screaming? You don't see spit flying out of Topper's mouth? This is the game on the line. You got to protect your team. No pulse, which describes the way this team played in this series. No pulse. Crazy. It really is crazy. Here's something that I do think can actually help create something new. And I've been a huge supporter of what they've done with Kyle Schwarber since they plopped him into that leadoff spot. But I do think you can create a new personality with moving Kyle Schwarber. Him batting leadoff was not the reason why this team wasn't able to capture magic this season. But I need to do a lot of things differently now. Stott's not ready to be a leadoff hitter yet. He did not hit good enough. Do not try and tell yourself that he's good. He's good enough right now. He's not good enough right now. I like Stott, but that's not what we're talking about. I'm not putting Trey Turner at number 1. No. I don't know exactly what I would do. But I know that can create a new brand of baseball potentially. And I can't have him batting close to Bryce back to back because of the lefties. I guess that means just sort of talking through this a little bit. What if Bryce led off? What if you went Bryce? See, I don't want Bohm here, and I don't know who's going to be here to replace him. I don't want Trey batting second, but with that contract, they're going to justify the contract by batting him up at the top. So, if you flip-flop Bryce and Kyle, is that much of a facelift? No, it's not. It's not. So you need to do more than that. But we're very raw in this. We're going to be throwing a bunch of different stuff at the wall to see what sticks. But I'm just sort of planting the seed, telling you where my mind is at currently with what we can do identity-wise. I would love to move off of Trey. Won't happen. I would love to move off from Bohm. I think that will happen. The JT thing, there's only 1 year left on his deal. So I don't know how much that really changes the grand scheme of things, even though it was unacceptable how he performed in the playoffs. And I would like to think that he could do better than he did for 1 more year. For 1 more year, can JT perform better than he did this year? I think so. But I don't want to go back to the same well. And if I already got burned doing something, how dare I get burned again? That's just silly, and that's on me. Nick? Does Nick have to be the sacrificial lamb? Weirdly enough, we're discussing all of the problems essentially being surfaced around chase rate again. And Nick's not a part of that. He had moments of chasing, but that's where, when I go back to this Bryce thing of does he deserve a bunch of blame? Like, yeah, but that 1 inning. Okay. there's let's look at the Yankees. Aaron Judge is underperforming to a crazy level. In baseball, it's not, because I keep hearing this. We rip Joel. We rip Jalen. Why can't we rip Bryce the same? There's plenty of times where Bryce deserves a bunch of criticism. But to act as if Jeff Hoffman, Estevez, Trey Turner, Kyle Schwarber, Alec Bohm, all of these men, JT Realmuto, the amount of impact others have on a game in the sport of baseball is significantly different than where Bryce is. Did he swing and miss in an at-bat in 3 straight pitches after a couple guys walked in a game? Absolutely. But I promise you that one at-bat was not changing the inevitable here. He had the moment that swung game 2. You have to have others step up. You had 2 out of your 9 guys produce enough. 2 out of 9 hitting. And then don't even get me started in the pen, because the answer to that is 0 guys helped. You're never going to win there. Never, ever, ever, ever going to win. You are never going to have one man in Bryce Harper be able to outslug Francisco Lindor, Pete Alonso, Nimmo. Don't even get me started on their third baseman. Like, it wouldn't happen. Knowing the nature of the sport and what the stats tell you is successful, what Bryce Harper has done, especially in this NLDS, with the Mets saying, I don't even want to face you, and him taking the walks. He's on base how many times and how many at-bats, hitting over 300 and having the huge homer in game 2. And in game 1, he was on base 3 times. The guy's been on base all series long. Sure, there's an at-bat or 2 you would like to have back. There's never, and I mean never, a time where there's somebody in Major League Baseball that is a high-caliber guy who won't have a bad at-bat that they would like to have back. I mean, you can't just ask this man to be perfect, and if he was perfect, you still would have lost this series because of all the surrounding factors. I really mean that. So, what was I saying prior to that? I forget. But anyway, the Bohm thing, the bullpen soft. I don't know. I know where I wanted to switch there. I talked about what did I say about? Oh, the chase rate. The chase rate. Yes. The chase rate. The chase rate was what they were supposed to work on last season, right? That was the big emphasis, led by Dave Dombrowski. So this is more crap thrown his way. What are we talking about now? Same thing. So it didn't get fixed. That has to fall on somebody's shoulders. More than just the manager, more than just, a guy here and there. The organizational's view last year was, we are going to run it back, make some tweaks, and really be more effective by not chasing pitches. And I'm not necessarily sure what the rate was, but it had to have been the same, if not worse. It sure felt worse, but I can have recency bias. So who has to pay the price for that? Oh, and I know what else I talked about too. That I was talking about Nick. Is Nick the sacrificial lamb of this whole thing? Now that he actually had a good postseason, do you have to maximize that window to see if another team would bite? Because there's probably going to be a time where he does get very chase happy again, and he does look all out of whack again and all out of sorts. But does his voice mean a lot in this clubhouse? But do you have to make people uncomfortable? I'm just talking through options right now, but that's sort of what we have to do when you're in this predicament. All right, I got some audio for you, and I also have to tell you about my friends at Garage Beer. All right, no bitterness, beer that tastes like beer. It's definitely not an IPA. It's 100% light beer and 1,000% quality. Make sure you check out Garage Beer. The link is down below in the description. DrinkGarageBeer.com. And also, real quick, if you are new to the channel, make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the thumbs up button as well. I greatly appreciate it. And you can take me on the road with you by going to Apple Podcasts, Spotify, your podcasting platforms. And if you search Sports Talk with Broads and leave a 5-star rating and a review, that will really help out the algorithm. So thank you so much for that as well. And all right, let's take a listen to a couple of audio clips here. We have some Anytime Hotline calls too. I'll try and sprinkle in a few of of them as well. Here's Alec Bohm in the locker room talking about how he's an aggressive hitter, his approach to the plate, and how he's not going to change who he is.
Yeah, I mean, definitely wasn't my best self, and that doesn't feel good, but it is what it is. It's a hard game, and you're not always going to be getting hits and doing all those things, and there's other ways to help the team win, and it just didn't happen. I think that just gets noticed because when I swing at the first pitch, I usually put it in play and hit it. I don't foul it off, I don't swing and miss, so the at-bat ends right there, and then I don't get a hit, and oh, he's swinging at the first pitch, he needs to see pitches. But I'm up there, I'm an aggressive hitter, I'm not going to change who I am. That's how I've been my whole career. That's what's got me here, and if they throw the ball over the plate, I'm ready to hit it, and I'm not going to think too much about all that other stuff and just go up there. And every time I stand there with the bat on my shoulder and see a pitch, it's right down the middle. So, you know, it's a double-edged sword.
No, that's not how it goes, Bohm. You talk about being an aggressive hitter and all. Yeah, but they are pretty much baiting you, and you're taking the bait every single time. It was those same pitches you were swinging at to pop up. It was the same exact spot, same exact location, and they knew they could get you out. That sounds to me like an entitled player says, I am who I am. It is what it is. I'm not going to change. You better. If you think you're too good to adjust, you can still have an aggressive style, but to think that you don't need to tweak anything because you're good enough is a joke. The postseason numbers speak for itself. You were overmatched, overpowered physically and emotionally. And quite frankly, if you don't clean up the emotional side, you are never, and I mean never, going to be able to produce in the playoffs, even if you do have some sort of difference in physical approach. Like, you got to be wired right in between the ears. And this guy is getting targeted, he's getting attacked, and he does not know how to handle it whatsoever. Him and Rob, I smell beef, all right? I see that there's clearly a disconnect, and I bet you it rubbed a lot of players the wrong way. I even got a sense when a lot of the players got asked about what they felt about Alec Bohm no longer being in the lineup in a major playoff game, I didn't get a sense that they gave two damns. Part of that could be because they can't control it, and if it's an uncontrollable, why even put that much energy into it? You got to focus on your job you have to do. You got to focus on your at-bats. You got to focus on winning the baseball game with or without Bohm. It's been a next man up mentality for a while there throughout the regular season. When you lost Dre for 6 weeks, when JT needed surgery, you know, there was definitely some injuries and people were banged up. What you had the hand situation, yeah, with Alec Bohm. So that played a role, and guys delivered, and maybe that's just why they were like, hey, it is what it is. We got to move forward here. But I didn't get a sense that they really gave a damn. And you got to remember, at some point you get tired of this when you're a veteran. They had to put their arms around Bohm this season. You know, hey, don't worry about it, bucko. Dude, you're a pro athlete. And he's almost 30. He's not 22. Bohm's been in the league long enough. The fact that we're still having these problems is crazy, and it's telling. And I don't think you can win with this. I think it's rubbing everybody the wrong way. We've had enough of it, and I don't blame them. Now let's listen to Dave Dombrowski. This one's fascinating. This was prior to the NLDS beginning. This is what Dave Dombrowski said to the media about the window for this team.
I don't feel like our window's closing. I keep hearing that. But I think what happens is that sometimes it closes with the current players that you have. But it doesn't mean that it closes overall. And I'm not saying that this is the time period, but we have young players coming that we really like. And we also have ownership that's very kind to us with our expenditures on payroll. So I think if you're in a position where some guys, what you're ideally looking to do is some players age, and they get older. Some of their skills diminish. It's just a fact. Not all, and some at different paces and all. But what you need to be doing is to having young players coming in the meantime. And we think we have some really good young players coming within the system. And some of them are here. I mean, when you see guys like Stockton, Bohm and Marsh, and then Sanchez, who's going to be around for a while, and Perkering and Rojas, but we have another group of people behind it. So I don't think that the window for the Phillies is closing, but you always have some limitation on the current team that you have.
Now, I think that's fascinating to make those type of comments before a playoff series is about to begin. And this isn't the only time something a little bizarre like this was talked about. I remember reading a piece on the Philadelphia Inquirer from Scott Lauber, and he brought up quotes from John Middleton about, pretty much the pressure being on. We got to win now. We got to attack now. It's not okay to be complacent. It's not all right to just go through the motions here. And this was during the regular season. These quotes were coming out, but there was almost a sense of urgency and a kick in the rear end through words from the owner. And now we're hearing the president of baseball ops reflecting, now that we saw what happened right before the NLDS, he's making comments about how if the window is changing, that there's some players here that will no longer be here, but the window for the Phillies will continue to be open. I don't know if that was a tactic to try and light a fire under anybody. It didn't work. That's for damn sure it didn't work. But here's what I don't want to do. And I know this isn't the topic for today, but I want to win a championship. Aiden Miller's not helping you win a championship next year. Justin Crawford's not helping you win a championship next year. That's not good enough. It's not good enough. Listen to me right now. Not good enough. Andrew Painter, yes. If you swapped out some of these guys and put in Miller and Crawford and rolled this thing out, woof. That's no longer competing for a championship the way it needs to be competed for. It's more of a, I guess we'll see what happens and hope the young kids grow while you do that. No. It's about Bryce Harper, and it's about what other guys you still have surrounding him, because some should be moved, but it's about those men having a real chance to compete at the end. A real chance. And first-year prospects, no. Doesn't do it for me. All right, let's take a couple phone calls, shall we?
Hey, bros, what's up, my man? I'm calling the day after this elimination of the Phillies by this great Mets team. Sucks to say that, but the Mets were just better. Honestly, looking back at this, I think this is somewhat of a blessing in disguise. I think, if this Phillies team got hot and made a run in this playoffs, nobody would really be saying negative things, and we'd have to run that team back out there next year. And, failure with this kind of lineup was inevitable. So I think this is somewhat of a blessing in disguise to expose those holes that will be fixed. I have faith in Dombrowski and the ownership, and I'm excited for 2025. I think the winning window's open. Guys are aging, but they're still there, and I think they want this, and I think there's something more there. Again, I think we're going to get better. Looking forward to 2025. Everybody keeps their heads up high. I know I'm being optimistic, but again, I think this is a blessing in disguise. Go Phils. Have a great one, my man.
I appreciate you calling in. You're more optimistic than I am looking ahead. I don't feel as confident as you do in Dave Dombrowski. I think he's a smart baseball mind, but his actions as of late, since really being at the helm here in Philly, has not been as impressive as we would have liked it to be. And at times he's been very weak on his approach, and I can't stand it. So I think he's better than what he's been putting on display. I just haven't seen it as a Phillies president yet to really jump both feet in anymore. I'm 1 foot in, 1 foot out on Dave. And here's where I'll disagree, though. I don't think it's a blessing in disguise, because in your hypothetical, and I'm just basing this off your hypothetical, you said if they were to get hot and go on a run, that would be a bad thing. But it wouldn't, because this lineup was flawed in 22 and got you to Game 6 of the World Series. This team was flawed last year, and at least we got to a Game 7 in the NLCS. If it's inevitable, and maybe they wouldn't have been able to get it done, I'd prefer getting to the NLCS. I mean, if I'm not winning the championship, and in one result, I'm losing in the first round in 4 games, or the second result, I'm getting to the NLCS and playing the Padres, I'd rather. Because in your scenario, they're hot. And I do think that while this team is flawed, if they are playing hot long enough, they can win it. Now, I don't know if they can play hot long enough, but if hot, this team can bang with the best of them and can win a ton of games. I'll take my risk with them being hot. John Middleton is a hungry owner. If they were to beat the Mets and lose to the Padres, you still would see major change. Because at that point, you're running it back and you're still getting a result that isn't acceptable. So I don't think they would have been fooled by that. John Middleton's pretty vocal, pretty loud about what he wants. So I don't think beating the Mets would change the trajectory of the offseason. And if they were to beat the Padres or the Dodgers in the NLCS to advance to the World Series and lose, then the roster's not as flawed as you think. Because that would be 2 out of 3 years of being in the World Series. Being in the World Series 2 out of 3 years, and then one of those years was an NLCS Game 7. So 1 game away from 3 straight World Series. While there would be flaws with your lineup, it wouldn't be as abysmal as you would think, once again, in this hypothetical. That's at least how I view it. But I'm not going to rain on anybody's parade if they want to have any sort of optimism. Just hard for me to do it. Just hard for me to do it. Let's slip in another one here.
I don't know, dude. I'm still bummed from last night, but at the same time, I think in order for us to make that like push over the edge to actually win a championship, we have to make some big changes. And I don't know what kind of changes those are going to be, but I think we have to figure out something. One of my options would be to look at a new manager. Like, that's extreme, but Rob has notoriously been a horrible playoff manager. And another one is we need to look into third base. We need to look into third base. Like, I genuinely think that Alec Bohm should be competing for his job in spring training. Not only that, but I genuinely think that if we can go out and get a better third baseman, like, I'd go after Bregman. I don't care. Like, he's a free agent. Go after him. Bounce Bohm's pouting ass. And then we also need to go after an outfielder. Like a legit outfielder. I mean, Nick can't do everything when the center fielder and the left fielder aren't doing anything. I don't know. Like, we need to, like, it sounds stupid, but we need to go after Mike goddamn Trout. Or Juan Soto, anybody. I don't want what we have at the moment.
Mike Trout, I don't think is the answer, as much as I would love to picture him healthy. It just he's a broken player at this point. Juan Soto, yes. Here's the thing. We've been throwing around $400 million, $500 million every single offseason, and not actually, but you get my point. And this is where it's gotten us. So while I'm not against going out and signing Juan Soto and signing big names and whatnot, just it needs to be the right guy for the right time and to make it work. The Trey thing backfired. That's for sure. The Nick thing, we're working with it, but there's definitely been a lot of ups and downs with the Nick thing. It's really been Bryson Schwarber has paid off dividends for the big time contract. We'll see where the Aaron Nola experience takes us, even though I don't hate bringing him back whatsoever. And the JT thing, you know, it's a thing. I'm not going to tell you it's been the worst guy ever, but it hasn't been a home run either. It's somewhere in the middle, I guess. Schwarber and Bryce. Those have been the two that have been 2 thumbs up. But there's been a lot of involved as well. Not saying I wouldn't do it. I agree with your assessment that Rob does have shaky playoff moments, although I don't think he deserves to be fired. I would do it because I think it would shake things up to the core. And his lackadaisical approach does sort of bleed through sometimes. And third base for sure. And an outfielder. Yeah, I mean, those are 3 areas that they need to significantly improve. I think you hit it right on the head. So, all right, that's going to do it. Thank you guys all so much for hanging out with me on the day after pod. Appreciate it. Love you guys to death, and I'll catch you all on the next one.